January 1st, 2013. Khayelitsha, a slum on the outskirts of Cape Town. A kerosene cooker fell over. A few hours later, the homes of 4,000 people were destroyed, and 5 people lost their lives. March 13th, 2013. Kayamandi, a slum where I work. An unattended candle fell over in the early hours of the morning. 5 hours later, 600 homes were destroyed and 2 people lost their lives. Why is it that in the 21st century, calamities such as these still occur, and on such a frequent basis? Why is it that in our cities today, thousands of people lose everything, just like that? To understand these questions, let's freeze frame and unpack what happened on those fateful mornings in Khayelitsha and in Kayamandi. If we zoom in and look at the epicenter of the fires, we can identify 3 main culprits. Firstly, the densities. People that live in slums live really close together, which means that you are instantly affected by anything that your neighbor does. Secondly, the building materials that people use. Materials such as cardboard, used plastic, and wood. Any mistake will cause these materials to burn instantly. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, the type of energy that people use in unelectrified slums, such as Khayelitsha and Kayamandi, is really dangerous and can cause rapidly spreading fires. For example, using kerosene cookers, heaters, or lamps is ridiculously dangerous. The kerosene appliances often leak or explode, causing rapidly spreading fires. But the dangers go beyond fires. Children, for example, often mistake kerosene for soda pop, which if they drink will poison them. The fuel also gives off lots of moisture when it is burnt, causing a damp and moldy interior, a really unhealthy living environment. Other people might use cheap charcoal or wood in order to meet their basic heating and cooking needs. Now, these fuels give off lots of thick, toxic smoke as well as ash when they are burnt, causing chest and eye infections. This is called energy poverty, the effect that dangerous energy has on poor people that don't have access to clean and safe energy. Let's take a moment and step back, zoom out of those 2 fires, and look at what's happening globally. Slums are the very, very natural result of people wanting to be in cities and governments not being able to keep up with the demand for housing, for water, and for electricity. As the urban poor move into new urban areas, those places become the new city. If you want to know in which direction the city will grow in the next 10 or 20 years, just look at where these slums are today. According to the UN, 1 billion people live in slums worldwide today. In sub-Saharan Africa, 62% of the urban population are slum dwellers. And in some Asian cities, this proportion is as high as 43%. For many of these urban residents, energy poverty is just one of the many calamities and problems that they face on a daily basis. Governments around the world seek to upgrade slums in stages by making step-by-step improvements over time, adding water, then electricity, and eventually housing. This process, however, takes an enormous amount of time. In my province, in the Western Cape in South Africa, it takes 32 years for those at the bottom of the waiting list to receive a house. That's more than an entire generation that goes without decent shelter. During this time, the urban poor use whatever resources they have at their disposal to provide for themselves what the state fails to deliver. So instead of waiting for electricity, slum dwellers will run dangerous extension cords for hundreds of meters. They'll build their own urinals, their own retaining walls, even their own shelter. The problem, however, is that when governments eventually do get around to upgrading slums, these massive investments by the urban poor are destroyed and are replaced with concrete and steel infrastructure. How can we expect slum dwellers to invest into their own settlements if these investments will only be destroyed and will become redundant in future? As a student of sustainability, I became engrossed with this question: how to think about slum upgrading differently. In Nkanini, the slum where I was researching, I would watch people collect firewood in the adjacent nature reserve in one of the world's most biodiverse regions, simply to have enough energy to heat or to cook with. I saw people with burn wounds. I witnessed the aftermath of frequent fires. I spoke to people that had lost everything, sleeping on the cold, bare earth at night, not even with a mattress. In trying to find a very practical way in which to make a difference, I asked myself the simple and obvious question: how do we reduce energy poverty today? Not tomorrow, today, while people wait for decent housing and electricity. To be feasible, I knew that any solution would have to be affordable and scalable over time, so that small things could be added to other small things, which in turn could become bigger things. It was also important to ensure that any solutions would not become redundant in future, to give people the assurance that their investments would not be destroyed. This meant that any solution would have to be able to link up with the formal government infrastructure system, such as the electricity grid. To find answers, I worked with a group of slum dwellers, engineers, and academics. Together, we came up with the concept of the iShack, which stands for Improved Shack. We focused our attention on two main energy aspects: the dwelling that people live in and the energy that they use inside of the dwelling. You see, the shack itself is an important component of the energy poverty story because it determines the way in which people use energy inside of their homes. Ecological design, which is any design that is aligned with nature's processes of heating, of cooling, and of the movement of air. This design can unlock enormous benefits to users in terms of comfort and cost efficiency. Now, ecological design is typically used as a greening strategy for rich middle-class individuals who seek to reduce their energy bills. But these design interventions can be introduced into any dwelling, even into shacks. We tried out our iShack dwelling design by building a sample dwelling for Nasango, a mother of three who was living in Nkanini with her 3 kids in the most appalling conditions. She was staying in a shack made out of used pallets with gaping holes in the roof and a dark and damp interior. When Nasango moved into a new home, we explained that the iShack faces north because this maximizes the amount of sun that it receives. By adding a roof overhang, the hot summer sun was kept out, but the lower-lying winter sun was able to penetrate and warm up the inside of the dwelling. By adding a floor made out of recycled bricks, which we collected at a landfill site, the heat of the day was able to be absorbed and was released at night, in the same way as the mud and straw wall would at the back of the dwelling. By adding windows in strategically placed positions, a natural draft was creating, keeping the indoor air at a good quality and at a more regulated temperature. And lastly, by insulating the shack, which we did on the roof, on the ceiling, and on the walls, which we made out of recycled cardboard and milk cartons painted with fire-retardant paint, this again improved the thermal performance of the dwelling. We tested the differences in temperatures between the iShack and a normal shack, and found that the iShack was far more comfortable. The temperatures were warmer in winter and at cooler temperatures, and they didn't fluctuate as much. Nsango was overjoyed. She reported that she no longer bought any more kerosene for heating and reported that her children became healthier and happier over time. In time, Nsango may choose to do what many other slum dwellers do, which is to gradually formalize their home by adding a small foundation as well as bricks around her existing shack. You see, any of the iShack dwelling interventions can be introduced into any other shack in stages. We tried this out with Victor's shack. Victor is a father of 2 who stays with his wife and kids next door to Nsango. Into Victor's home, we introduced simply another window as well as the cardboard and milk carton insulation. Victor, too, noticed a marked improvement in comfort as well as a reduction in his energy bill. Any of these iShack components may thus be introduced into any other structure, step by step, over time, until people can build something a little bit more formal. The second iShack energy poverty improvement, which both Nsango and Victor received, was a solar multi-grid system. This solar system does not require a formal electricity grid connection because the power plant is on the roof. Yet visually, the solar multi-grid system looks like just any other normal electricity grid connection. There are indoor lights with switches, there's a distribution box, there's even a flat-screen TV. By using the most energy-efficient appliances in the market, slum dwellers may add these appliances step by step, over time, as they can afford it. The key benefit, however, is that when the electricity grid eventually arrives, the solar system does not have to be discarded. This is because the solar system can link up with the electricity grid and work together. This means that the users will benefit from using primarily solar energy, which is abundant, and they can switch over to the grid merely as a backup. The feedback from these solar systems was incredible. Nsango said that she no longer buys any more candles or lighting kerosene. With bright lights, her kids no longer have an excuse not to do their homework at night. The air is cleaner inside. Her friends always visit her at night, and she hosts a weekly prayer meeting in the evenings. As for Victor, well, his mobile phone is always charged now, which means he's able to take more work at shorter notice, and his income is gradually increasing over time. Both Nsango and Victor feel safer at night. In an otherwise dark neighborhood, the strong spotlights outside of their doors make them feel a lot safer. These energy poverty improvements work. They are small things which are affordable and can add up to become bigger things over time. But how do we make these improvements accessible to slum dwellers? How do we let the impact scale? This is challenging because people might require training on ecologically designed building, and solar systems require maintenance in order to function over time, just like any infrastructure. People might also require financing in order to afford the switch to renewable energy technology. It's thus important to create a support network that ensures that these improvements are sustainable, that they don't become an end point or a development cul-de-sac, but rather that they are sustainable, that the improvements gain in momentum, and that they become the very fuel of a dynamic movement of slum dwellers that are able to and allowed to upgrade their own settlements. This means that iShack is no longer a noun, but rather that iShack is a verb, the improving rather than the improved shack. To kickstart this process, our team at the Sustainability Institute has set up the iShack Social Enterprise in Nkanini, and we're offering these improvements to the residents of Nkanini. Victor is our first community solar entrepreneur. He was so inspired by the changes in his own life that he's now offering these benefits with others in his community. Victor markets, installs, and maintains the solar systems in Nkanini. He also encourages people to get into groups of 5 to form new savings clubs. Now, these savings clubs are instrumental in order to help people to save up for the deposits for their new solar systems. But the process doesn't stop there. Once people have their solar systems, they can continue to save up for the next improvement, and then the next improvement. Step by step, over time, small things becoming bigger things. With this process, a new generation of slum dwellers is emerging, one which is organizing itself around the very things that they need: improved shelter and better infrastructure. By being organized, slum dwellers become far more powerful. They're able to share resources, coordinate their efforts, but more importantly, are more effective in engaging with governments in order to receive the support and subsidies which are due to them. The iShack social enterprise is in advanced stages in engaging with the local government of Stellenbosch in order to take receipt of energy subsidies to lower the cost of solar energy systems. Subsidies which are beyond the reach of unelectrified communities, and we're making these accessible to people now. Let's think about problems such as energy poverty and slum upgrading differently. We don't have the benefit of time. Our cities and our slums are growing while we wait. Thank you.